What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video we'll be taking a look at 3 of the recently changed Pokemon in Season 16 of the GOBattleLeague. Serperior with the buffed Aerial Ace that now costs less energy, which puts it in the running for Premier Grass type in the Great League, potentially even over Venusaur. Greedent, which has been given the fast attack of Mudshot that allows it to spam out moves extremely fast. It's an absolute menace and is personally my favorite change of the season. And finally, Lanturn, with the changed fast move of Spark, which is now a clone to that of Bullet Punch. This means Spark now does more damage to help in some farm down scenarios, but it gains energy slower than it previously did, meaning you're not going to be reaching those charge moves as quickly as you were before. And in my opinion, this change to Spark or Lanturn is neither a buff nor a nerf, but rather a side grade. As through my battles with it, that extra damage has come in clutch, but the slower energy generation has also hurt me. So in other words, Lanturn is still a very viable Pokemon. And with that, let's get right to the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Serperior into Lickitung. Pretty decent lead for us, as Serperior does win all even shield scenarios. We do pace the same to our Frenzy Plant versus their Body Slam, as well as the second one, but since the third Frenzy Plant is only 5 Vine Whips as opposed to 6, we will outpace before they reach their third Body Slam as well. So first Frenzy Plant is able to land, and we will reach the second one right here, which will knock out the Lickitung if they decide to let it go, and they do. Now they're going to bring in Medicham and go for a counter down. I'm throw this Aerial Ace on what would have been the CMP tie to their Ice Punch, but my opponent wisely goes for the extra and instead counters down. Can't really swap out here because I don't want my Greedent onto the Medicham, so I'm going to let my Serperior get farmed down and now bring in a Lanturn. Lanturn is going to take the power-up punch from my opponent, and it looks like they're going straight up here, ramping up the amount of counter damage they can do. And that is perfectly fine by me, because Lanturn, as we know, is notoriously bulky, so it can take these power-up punches no problem. Now we're going to load up energy and go for this Thunderbolt. I'm going to go for Thunderbolt right here because a Surf isn't quite enough to KO. So I wanted to make sure that if they no-shielded it, the Medicham would get knocked out. So now they go for another pup, of which I shield because I do want to be able to get some chip damage off on the Medi before my Lanturn would go down. My opponent, very nice catch by them of that Surf onto the Yazoo. So I'm going to rebank that Surf for later to have it to throw against the Medi, and now swap into the Greedent, where you can see, look at how quickly it's getting to these moves. It gets to a Body Slam every 4 Mud Shots and a Crunch every 5 Mud Shots. So really the main thing with Greedent is just be sure to throw on good timing. If you're always throwing on good timing with Greedent, you can punish your opponents so much with how fast you're able to get off these moves. And just like that, we're already at another 2 Body Slams. First Body Slam lands, and now they send back in the Medicham, which is going to have to deal with all this loaded energy that our Greedent has from the overfarm. We go for the first Body Slam and the second one, of which our opponent concedes the match. GG's. And already from that matchup, you can see just how spammy and good Greedent is. Next battle, we lead Serperior into Jellicent. This is a fantastic lead for us, as we have 3 answers to the Jellicent. My opponent sends in a Muck. So there, I hesitate a little bit, wait, and then swap in the Greedent. Really, I should have stayed in, thrown that Aerial Ace, and then swapped into the Greedent, so I'm not all that energy behind, or I should have just swapped into the Greedent right away. And here I do decide that, hey, you know, I'll play for Switch a little bit. Honestly, in hindsight, maybe not the best decision. Could have just played for Shields instead, because again, we do have a Lanturn to deal with that Jellicent, but either way, we're still in a pretty good position regardless of what happens. Except right here, Overfarm just won a little too much, play to a CMP tie that I don't win. So unfortunately, that's a little bit of a misplay, but Greedent, it's not done. It is not done. Even with that little bit of a misplay, in comes a Haxorus, and we're still going to be able to get another Body Slam's worth of chip on the Haxorus, of which does get a shield from, which is beautiful. And Haxorus core breaks my last 2 Pokemon, but that's fine because I do have my Superior at least, which can come in and fire off these neutral aerial aces. And this is where that decrease in energy for the aerial ace can come in clutch in situations like that, where you need to potentially outpace your opponent. But we are going to land that aerial ace, save our Superior for that Lanturn, and now for their Jellicent, excuse me, and swap in our Lanturn, where even though they're able to get a Breaking Swipe debuff off on us, we're still able to handle the Haxorus, and this Thunderbolt is still going to do a ton of energy to the Jellicent. I do throw an alignment right there, knowing it's a CMP tie win, just in case they try and throw an alignment, because I needed to get that Thunderbolt damage off regardless. Because say I go for the extra, but they throw an alignment, then I'm going to lose all that energy, and that is energy that damage that I desperately needed on the Jelly. But we're able to take that one. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Superior into Steelix. Steelix is another Pokemon that's recently been buffed in this season, giving access to Breaking Swipe, which we know is it's the same amount of energy and does the same amount of damage as Dragon Claw, but it also drops the opponent's attack by 1 stage. And here, my opponent swaps in a Pelipper. And this is one matchup, you can farm all the way down, not even worrying about it. But this is one matchup where the pre-Spark damage energy change is kind of better, because previously, since Spark did less damage, you can farm down the Peli all the way and leave with more energy. While here, since Spark does more damage, you get less energy from it. So even though it allows you to farm down quicker, it's one of those situations where, you'd rather have it doing less damage. Back in comes the Steelix. So we're able to take that Breaking Swipe, which lowers their attack, and by swapping into our Superior right there, we're going to reset that debuff, get some Frenzy Plants off, and in the back they have Mantine. And because I was able to save my Lanturn on just a little bit of HP, we're going to be perfectly fine here. And either way, doesn't matter, because our Superior is going to be able to take out this Mantine regardless. So down goes Mantine, and with 2 shields, Superior just put in on an absolute clinic that game, cleaning up the end game, as it's able to survive on 1 HP right there. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Superior into Shadow Victreebel. All right, let's see how Superior lines up in this situation. So like I was saying before, that faster access to Aerial Ace comes in clutch here. As you'll see, I'm able to get off 1, which gets the first shield from them. Get off 2, which will most likely be getting their second shield. That it does. And now I will give off a shield in return, just because if it's the Basti Medi backline, which of Shadow Victreebels normally tend to be, then I am going to want alignment so I can keep my Greedent away from the Medicham. So I shield up the Acid Spray, land that final Aerial Ace, and we're able to win the 1-2 shield scenario against Shadow Victreebel. Where now they have the Medi in the back, so I can align my Lanturn onto it. And normally in the Lanturn Medi matchup, or pre-Spark change, it would take 2 Thunderbolts to take out the Medicham. But because of the increase and buffed damage, it takes a Thunderbolt and a Surf to get rid of the Medi. So now they go for the buff Psychic, and we're just fall short. The less energy that Spark provides hurt us, as you saw, hurt us just a little bit right there, as we weren't able to reach the Surf, but our Greedent was able to take minimal counter damage because of that Body Slam spam. And now here is where throwing on good timing is absolutely crucial. This is going to be a very, very close matchup against the Basti. So I will shield up the first move. It is a Stone Edge, and now it's going to become a race. Can I reach 3 crunches before they reach their next Stone Edge? First crunch lands, gets the defense drop, and that's pretty big, because now these Mud Shots are going to start doing even more damage to the Basti as well. So second crunch lands, and we outpace by a single turn to get to the third crunch to take care of the Basti as we win this match. GG's to my opponent. Well played. Mudshot, Greedent, learn your fast move timing for this one. It's absolutely crucial. Next matchup, Superior into Medi. Now this is an interesting one. Since Aerial Ace still isn't the best damage move, Frenzy Plant does do more damage than the super effective Aerial Ace. So it's one of those situations where it's like Medicham. If you're only going to get to one move, go for the Psychic as opposed to the Ice Punch. For Superior, if only going to get to one move, go for the Frenzy Plant instead of the Aerial Ace. And in the Medi matchup, in the zeros, if you go straight Aerial Ace, you'll actually lose the zeros. So you have to go for a Frenzy Plant and an Aerial Ace, and then you'll win the zeros. So that's what we plan on doing right there. But our opponent made the catch onto that Pelipper, which, of course, we bring in our Lanturn, we spark all the way down, and we leave with this energy to throw at the Lickitung. So Thunderbolt's coming through, does get a shield for my opponent, as they will be able to land that Power Whip onto my Lanturn. But I give up a shield, and it's a Body Slam bait, so very nice bait by my opponent. And they're just barely going to be able to outpace me before I reach this next Thunderbolt. But that's fine, I'm going to let it go, as Lanturn is still able to hang on and get off this Thunderbolt regardless. So Thunderbolt ends up getting the final shield from the Lickitung. So now I can swap in my Greedent while their switch timer's not, while they're getting extra energy on their Lickitung. And now I can just spam off these moves to take out that Medi, and that Lickitung with the double resisted licks is not going to be able to take care of my Greedent. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Superior into Medicham again. So if my opponent stays in, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about, how I'm going to go for the Frenzy Plant off the bat, as it's a Medicham. They're least likely to shield the first move. And that's what my opponent does, they let it go through. And now I'm going to let this one go as well. Superior is a bulky Pokemon. It can take an Ice Punch or a Psychic, and my opponent baits with a Power Up Punch. And now it seems like they're just going to try and pup their way through my Superior. But they swap into an A-Slash, and I don't have... I should have come into Greedent here, I know. But my thinking was, well, maybe they're trying to bait out the Greedent so their Medi can take care of it. And Lanturn can also survive a drill run and still get off a move, so it's fine either way. But it wasn't, in hindsight, bringing in the Greedent to the double resisted Shadow Claws is definitely the better option there. But here I do have a ton of energy on my Superior, so I'm gonna fire off this Frenzy Plant, which should just about take out the A-Slash. Leaves them on a sliver, so I'm going to swap, save my Superior for later, catch that Ice Punch, and now they have a Diggersby in the back. And this is going to be tough, because Diggersby has now access to the new move of Scorching Sands, which is pretty good move overall. That does have the chance to drop your attack as well, and it does, unfortunately. So this match is looking pretty dire at this point. I need to be able to potentially stall out the switch clock, make a catch, work finagle something, work a little bit of magic. We'll see what we can do. Another Body Slam lands, and I'm going to have to rely on my Superior to win this match, if anything, because again, they do have that Medi. So now here, I'm going to load up on energy. I was going to throw in the CMP tie to their Scorching Sands, but they have Fire Punch, and now that forces me to give up a shield that I didn't have to. And that's kind of an unorthodox moveset, because mainly your most Diggersby are going to be running Scorching Sands and Hyper Beam, so it has coverage to Pokemon like Altaria. Where before, if you're running Scorching Sands and Fire Punch, you're still going to be walled against an Altaria. So a little unfortunate there, as we're just barely not able to take out the Medi as they land the Psychic, and Greedent goes down. GG's to my opponent, though. Well played. Very well played by him. Next battle, we lead Superior into Shadow Charizard. Absolutely atrocious lead. We're going to swap right away into our Greedent. And that energy generation, we're already at a Body Slam. It's going to apply some heavy pressure onto the Shadow Charizard, as 2 Body Slams is enough. Now they're going to bank a Dragon Claw, swap into their Shadow Swampert, And Greedent just going to do what it does best. Charge move after charge move, body slam after body slam, applying some heavy pressure to these shadow Pokemon. They go for the Hydro Cannon. Greedent's able to hold on. And because Greedent's pretty bulky too, they're not going to be able to mud shot down and are going to have to go for another charge move. So my opponent recognizes that, and they let their Swampert go, come in to get farm on their Lanturn, but Greedent is not done. Reaches yet another body. It's absolutely crazy. Like, I feel like you guys would be tired of me of saying how spam it is, but it's absolutely crazy. Please give it a go. It's really good. But at that point, we have the alignment. My opponent realizes it's over. GG's to them. Well played. Next battle, Superior into DD. Now this is a pretty decent. This is kind of where we want to see it, as long as it's off the Greedent. And now my opponent's going for the Psycho Boost and Dip. Psycho Boost lands, does a decent amount of damage to Superior, and now they're going to swap in a Gligar. I don't have a best answer to a Gligar safe swap, so I'm going to go for a Frenzy Plant, Chip, and then dip into my Greedent to start firing off these body slams. But my opponent gives up a shield, which is fine as well. I'm still going to swap into my Greedent and do the exact same thing. Body slam number 1 comes through. If I was running Water Gun Lanturn, I would have come into my Lanturn there, since you can survive a dig, and that Water Gun plus Surf combination would be a little more pressure heavy. But since I am running Spark, it is not the best matchup for it by any means. Now they come in, they snipe with their DD, but that's fine. I'm not worried, as Superior can come back in and do what it's meant to do against this DD. And now my opponent is at the back-to-back Psycho Boosts, so I don't want to give up a shield here. I would rather instead get that energy on the Lanturn, where it's going to be more useful for the end game. And earlier you saw where not reaching that Surf against the Medi, how the decrease in energy generation from Spark caused it so I didn't reach the Surf against the Medi. Well, in that situation, the Spark damage right there helped. The increase in Spark damage, because I was going to be able to farm down the DD if my opponent didn't swap out into their Gligar. But they have an Azu in the back, and my 2-shield Lanturn is very easily going to be able to close out this game. All I need to do is shield up the Play Rough, throw one more Spark, and then the Thunderbolt for good timing. This will bring the Azu deep into the red. Not deep, but into the red. As I can then throw this Surf. A little less than ideal timing, but just wanted to get rid of the Azu as quickly as possible so Lanturn can close out the game. I just shield the first move, as the next Cycle Boost will do less damage due to the attack drop, and their DD goes down. GG's my opponent. Next battle, we lead Superior into Lanturn. This is the dream lead, as my opponent swaps out into their Shadow Gligar. And like last time, we don't have the best answer to a Gligar save swap, so we're going to go for the Frenzy Plant Chip and then dip into our Greedent. Just like last time, we do get a shield, so it would have been nice for a little bit of an Aerial Ace bait right there. But either way, I wanted to guarantee heavy damage or the shield. Greedent's pretty tanky, able to withstand that Shadow Dig just fine, and now able to spam off these body slams that it is so good at doing. We'll give up a shield to this next dig, but my opponent actually baits with a Night Slash, so they're running an interesting moveset. Not the new Aerial Ace, but rather Night Slash and Dig. As my opponent no shields that body slam, brings them deep into the red, and unfortunately I'm not quite at a range where I can mudshot them down, so I am gonna have to go for another charge move here to take out the Gligar. My opponent gives up a shield, so I'm gonna hard swap it in my Superior, snipe that Gligar, and now they bring in the Venu. And now it's the battle of the grass starters of the Great League, as one Aerial Ace is able to land. If it's Shadow, it 2 shots. If it's non-Shadow, it won't. But if the matchup goes on long enough, those Vine Whips will add up to the point where Aerial Ace does 2-shot the Venu. My opponent makes a very nice catch onto their Lanturn, but it is a Water Gun Lanturn. So here I can overfarm before that Surf, go for this Frenzy Plant, Is it going to be enough to take it out? It's just not enough. So, as we like to say, one nice catch deserves another as we catch the Surf onto our 1 HP Greedent, where we can now farm down the Lanturn and outpace the Venu to this Aerial Ace, which will get the job done and close out the match. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Superior into Alolan's Sandslash. Now this is a pretty big core breaker to this team, so we'll see what we can do. We're going to stay in. They're forced to go for the Ice Punch. I go for a swap on what would be the CMP tie, but my opponent shows great patience with that energy, and now they're able to fire off that Drill Run. And now here, I'm going to overfarm as well. I go for that Surf right away. It would be a CMP tie that I don't win, and my opponent, making all the right calls this game, baits with an Ice Punch. And now they're going to send in a Medicham, of which, fortunately, we are able to survive that counter damage and get off the back-to-back Surfs. But this is great. Our Lanturn was actually able to bait out the Medicham, so our Greedent doesn't have to see it. So that's exactly what we wanted to happen in this scenario. I do go for the extra Vine Whip here, just because I want energy to threaten the A-Slash when it comes back in. So I'm going to overfarm to the back-to-back Aerial Aces, as the first one will take out the Medi or get their shield. My opponent lets it go, and it seems like they're going to be relying on their A-Slash here, as we are able to land this Frenzy Plant. And no, my opponent actually lets it go, so they're putting it all on what they have in the back, and it's an Azu. And again, the Mudshot generation is just, energy generation is just absolutely incredible. Like normal, good timing, and we're just going to spam off these moves. Second Body Slam onto the Azu, already at a third Body Slam. It's just absolutely crazy. I love it. This chunky squirrel it's just awesome. It's absolutely crazy. Third Body Slam able to land. I let this go. I'm like, I can take a Play Rough or an Ice Beam, but it ends up being a Hydro Pump, and I'm like, oh shoot, well that changes my game plan a little bit, because now I can't really rely on Greedent to win the game, but rather Superior. And since we were able to land that Frenzy Plant on the Shadow A-Slash earlier, Superior should be fine to close it out, as we can just shield here, farm down the A-Slash, and get to the back-to-back Aerial Aces to take care of the Azu before they are able to reach an Ice Beam, I should say. So I'm going to go for his first Aerial Ace. My opponent knows that they will have to survive one move, so they let the first one go, as we're able to farm down and take that one. GG's to my opponent. I'm a big fan of the move changes for this season of the Go Battle League, and it's going to be interesting to see where the Great League meta settles down as the season progresses. But in my opinion, I have a feeling you'll be seeing a lot more Greedent, an increase in Superior, and as for Lanturn, it's not going anywhere. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.